Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Ewing. Today we're going to talk about carbs, carbohydrates. When you think of carbs, you probably think of bread, pasta, grain, yummy donuts. Also, there's been that trend, that whole carbs are the devil trend, not to eat carbs, they're bad for you. Well, carbs are pretty much in everything. And today we're going to kind of more look at that carbs are providing this amazing structural support for plants and energy storage for us. So many of you are athletes, and you might have heard of the term carbo load. I'm a big Office fan, so here we have Dwight and Michael Scott getting ready for the Dunder Mifflin race for the cure for rabies, and he's doing a carbo load. He's doing it incorrectly, but he's doing one nonetheless. Now, your body has enough glycogen, which is how we store carbs for energy, to last you about 90 minutes of intense exercise. And after 90 minutes, it is a short-lived energy source, so it's gone. And that's why we have all these performance goos and energy drinks and things that people can use during races to allow them to replenish their glycogen storages. Well, if you're an athlete, you've probably heard of carbo load and how about 3 days before a big race, you're supposed to stock up on carbs. Not right before a race. That's not going to make you feel very good. But the idea is that if you are having more carbs in your body, increasing it sufficiently, then you will essentially have more glycogen storage for your race, allowing you to have more energy, more sustained energy that day. So let's take a closer look at exactly what carbs are. Well, first we know that the monomer, which is its basic subunit of a carb, is a monosaccharide. Monosaccharide. There's my beautiful writing again. So a monosaccharide is just a either 5 or 6 carbon sugar. And this is a famous monosaccharide. This is glucose. Glucose. Okay, I'm sure you've heard of it. Glucose is C6H12O6. And it's simply a chain of carbons, and we've got some oxygens and hydrogens, and we see some hydroxyl groups attached to it. And the important thing to remember about carbohydrates or monosaccharides is that they always have this specific ratio. So if we have, let's get a different color here. If we have, for carbons on this, we have 6. You can count them up and make sure. And then we have 12 hydrogens and 6 oxygens. We see that there's a specific ratio. And this ratio, to remember, it's the CHO ratio. So our CHO ratio, so CHO ratio is always going to be 1 carbon to 2 hydrogen to 1 carbon. So we can have different combinations like C5H10O6, that would be a 5 carbon sugar. Or as long as we have multiples of these, of the 1-to-1 ratio, we know that it is a monosaccharide. Okay? So that is the most basic unit of a carbohydrate, is this monosaccharide, a carbon ring basically, and it's a sugar. And the way I remember that is saccharide reminds me of saccharin, which is that sugar substitute that people use. It's still technically a type of sugar, but it's a little different than our kind of table sugar that we use. I think that is sugar, so the basis is 1 carbon ring monosaccharide. So let's take a look at some examples. So we have fructose here. This is a monosaccharide. If you notice, fructose has a 5-carbon ring. So you see it's a little pentagram right there. And we've got glucose. This is our kind of star here. And galactose would be another example. I always make a joke that you can find galactose on the Death Star, but that is its actual name, even though it's funny. So these are just some examples of monosaccharides. It's the monomer of a carbohydrate. Now let's take a look at another popular monosaccharide. In DNA, let me get my pretty colored pen here. How about red? So in DNA, we know that the backbone is made up of a phosphorus group. That's that little P right there. And it's made up of a 5-carbon sugar and a nitrogenous base. So that's our 3-part nucleotide. We'll be having another video on DNA, nucleic acids. But this sugar is a monosaccharide, and it is a 5-carbon sugar, and here it is right here. So we have our nitrogenous base, our 5-carbon sugar, and our phosphate group. So your DNA in itself, the backbone, has a monosaccharide in it that provides its kind of structural support. So when we get one or more monosaccharides joined together, we have what's called a disaccharide. These are some popular disaccharides, most common. Lactose, remember that's that sugar that's found in milk, so that's a disaccharide. And if you remember, the bond that is formed right here is called a glycosidic bond. I'll spell that out because that's a little small. So this is a glycosidic we sometimes call it glycosidic linkage or glycosidic bond. I'll use linkage just because I like that one. So that is a type of bond that bonds two saccharides together in order to form a disaccharide. So here's sucrose, which is a fructose, which is a 5-carbon sugar, and galactose, which is that 6-carbon sugar monosaccharide. And here we have again that glycosidic bond. And maltose is another sugar that we've got here, and it's 2 6-carbon sugars. So that's what a disaccharide is. So we've got monosaccharides, disaccharides, and last but not least, we have a polysaccharide. Now, polysaccharides can be tens of or hundreds of thousands of monosaccharides long, all right? So this is a monosaccharide, and the plant walls are made of, plant cell walls are made of a monosaccharide, or a polysaccharide, excuse me, called cellulose. But let's go ahead and make sure that we note that this right here is a polysaccharide. Good fit. Ah, there it goes. So this is a polysaccharide, and once you have more than 2 linked together, so 3 or more, it's considered a polysaccharide. So remember that poly means many, and saccharide meaning sugar. So we have many purposes of these polysaccharides, and this is really the basis of what we're studying here when we're studying carbohydrates. This is a polysaccharide in that, this is a polysaccharide that humans use. This is called glycogen. Right? This is how we store our energy. It's a giant molecule. You could see that all of these little things right here are little glucose molecules. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, all linked together in a complex around, what's this right here? What does that look like? That is a protein. and that is a protein called glycogenin. Glycogenin. And this is how our body stores energy in the form of carbohydrates. Another important polysaccharide is cellulose. Right here, cellulose. Now, if we take a leaf and we were to look at it under a microscope, we would see this very rigid cell walls. All right, this is what gives the structural support for plants so that they can be rigid and stand up straight. And these cell walls are made of cellulose microfibrils. Okay, so these microfibrils, it's a tongue twister there, are basically a monomer unit of glucose repeated over and over and over and over and over again, thousands and thousands of times, to create this structural support of this microfibril. So if you remember correctly, what is this little linkage called? That's a glycosidic linkage. And we see that these, if we kind of dive more into this, so if we take this cell wall right here, I added another image, we have, so we've got our plasma membrane right here, which is made up of a phospholipid bilayer. And then we have this cellulose microfibrils right here that are made up of those glucose monomers that give that structural support to plants and their cell walls. Another really important and actually quite fascinating polysaccharide is called chitin. So chitin, not monosaccharide, I apologize, polysaccharide. So chitin is a polysaccharide that actually forms the exoskeleton of spiders and crustaceans like crabs. And so it's a really, really obviously tough and hard polysaccharide. And it's also, this right here is mushrooms, you can't tell. So mushrooms are the flowering body. The ones that you see above ground are basically its flower. The majority of the mushrooms are underground, and that is a structure called the mushroom's mycelium. Okay, so that's basically the majority of the fungus is mycelium. And mycelium, the walls of mycelium, are made of chitin. So that is it for our carbohydrates video. I hope you enjoyed it and have a fabulous day.